Okay. And if I make Cecka a co-host, will she be able to have a large screen too if she wants, if she's talking, or are we going to be in a grid form like this? Anybody know? Nobody? All right,
I'm
well,
not
go
sure.
ahead. What's that?
I said, I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
I
Okay,
think it's
I don't know
based
either.
on, it's based on however, whoever's recording, what the person recording selects as the view.
Oh, Keisha, can you make the view so that it's on Cecka? And just let us know.
Yes, give me a moment to figure it out.
Okay, good. This will give me thank you. Oh, and give me time to let Kendra in. Let me try to remember what my other update was. Oh, for the Lit Guild, we have a movie night not all students, if you're in this room, you are invited. You are already a part of the Lit Guild, whether or not you choose to participate. So we have a movie night next Wednesday on the 18th in the Writing Center at 7 p.m. We're going to be viewing Master, which is that movie on Netflix that stars Regina Hall. And possibly Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Garnes, I think, are going to be partnering up with us to have some conversation about that movie. And because it seems, has anybody seen Master yet, by the way? I mean, don't come see it with us. Don't see it. But I think it's about a Black professor at a small liberal arts college up in the north, but it's supposed to be haunted. But it seems like the Black women or the Black kids at that school are the ones who are getting the roughest end of it. And it feels to me, based on the trailer, to be kind of like a Jordan Peele kind of horror. It is? Oh, okay. So then if that's the case, I think it opens up some great conversations that tie into the freshman reading. Even though you guys are not freshmen, their book was something about the history of HBCUs and their value and all of that sort of thing. And so I think they're going to help us form some discussion points for afterward. All right, everything's all set up. I'm going to turn it over to Cecka. Please take it away. Just tell us about yourself. And when you're done with that, just, you know, I'm gonna, the next question I'm gonna ask you is about your path to English. After that, I'm gonna ask you how it's helped you in your career. And then finally, I'm gonna ask you to give some parting words to the students here.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me well. Thank you. I feel so honored to be asked to participate in this What Can You Do with an English Major week of activities. I think it's so awesome because they did not have this when I was at FAMU. So I am Cecka Rose Green, and contrary to popular belief, Rose is not my maiden name. It is my middle name, and I use it to honor both of my grandmothers. One was Rosa and one was Rose. So when I got married, I used that as my middle name. My maiden name was True Blood. And I am currently the inaugural executive director of the Children's Services Council of Leon County, based here in Tallahassee. I am married to a FAMU alum as well, Marvin Green, and we have 3 children, 2 of whom are students at FAMU as well. One is a religion philosophy major, that's Mari Green, and she is a senior in CSSAH, so I'm very proud of that. And the other, Shayla, is a sophomore, and she is a pre-cardiopulmonary science major. So I actually come from a very long line of Rattlers. My father is an alum, his 2 sisters are alums. My mother is an alum with 2 master's degrees. My husband's an alum, my sister-in-law. So we do FAMU in our family. We also have one more child, Marvin III, who's 16, and he has already been told that his first degree must come from FAMU as well. That's just what we do in our family. We figure if the Princeton legacy send their kids back to Princeton, the Harvards, the UCLA, the Brigham Youngs, then it's important for us to do the same with our children. I participated in lots of things at Florida A&M. I was on the Rattler cheer squad for 3 years, I was a member of a modeling troupe, Epicurean, which I don't think is still functioning. I was a tutor. I was editor of the rap sheet. I pledged Kappa Psi Psi Ets, which is another story that I'll tell you how it led to me being in English. I pledged Delta Sigma Theta while I was there, was Miss Black and Gold. So in the 6 years that I was at Florida A&M, I took advantage of, and I was a presidential scholar, so let me not leave out the academic piece. I really tried to take advantage of as many opportunities as possible. As you can imagine, when you grow up in the city where you go to college, a lot of people think that maybe you didn't have any choices, or maybe you weren't quite ready to leave home. Nothing could have been further from the truth regarding me. I was going to attend Spelman, and then I decided I was going to be a pharmacy major. So I decided I would attend the University of Florida. Just to be very candid, I went down and visited one of my homegirls who was there in school, and I didn't see lots of people that looked like me. It was who looked like me. And that was a little bit off-putting. So I decided, well, since I wanted to be a pharmacy major, I would just stay here and go to the #1 school that was graduating Black pharmacists at that time, and still is now. So I have never left Tallahassee to live. I am very happy to be here in the city where I was raised. And hopefully some of what I tell you this evening will give you options as you finish and move through your major as English majors, and understand that there are so many options out there for you if you just take the time to explore them and talk to different people to see where their paths led them to be.
Oh, wonderful introduction. All right. So now you told us about your excellent run at FAMU as a student. Can you now share what your path was that led you to the English department?
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, you heard pharmacy a lot in that introduction. When I was in high school, I am a graduate from Florida A&M University Developmental Research School. Back then it was called FAMU High, and my mother also taught there. Oh, and by the way, my dad and his sisters were graduates from FAMU High as well. I participated in a program called the Minority Science Symposium Program. And at that time, they were taking Black middle and high school students and introducing them to the sciences. That was before we had the acronym STEMs, but they were introducing them to the sciences. And I was interested at that time in pharmacy. And so starting in the 8th grade, every summer, I participated in this program. And during the school year, I would go for a few hours every week to do research in this program. The first lab I was in was actually in the old pharmacy building, and the second lab I was in the biology building in Jones Hall. I even went so far as to do research and presented when I was a sophomore in high school at the National Symposium in Washington, D.C. on the effects of pesticides on hepatic cells. So I was really into it, like really into it. And so when I finished school, it was just automatic. I was going to be a pharmacy major. I would be in school for 6 years. And when I came out, I would be a doctor of pharmacy. I was going for my PharmD. Got in school and went through to my 4th year. Now, during that time, and I believe this still is true today, there were only certain classes that they offered once a year. And so if you did not do well in that class, then you would have to wait a whole year before you could take that class again. So even though I was valedictorian in my high school, I graduated with like a 3.83, which back then was good. I mean, now valedictorians graduate with 4.910s or whatever. I just really wasn't into it. It just seemed parochial to me. And so my sophomore year, I took organic chemistry, which also happened to be the year that I pledged. and I got a D. So that meant I could either wait and take it again, or if they offered it in the summer, I could take it again. So I took it in the summer, got a B that time. So I said to myself, so it's not that you can't do the work. Are you really motivated? Decided I would buckle down. This was really what I wanted to do. And by the first semester of my 4th year in school, I said to myself, I don't want to do this. Nothing about who I am says I want to be a pharmacist. I want to wear a white coat. I want to stand behind a wall and peddle drugs legally all day. So everyone has to take electives. And at the time, I was taking lots of English electives, women in literature, African-American literature, all of the public speaking classes. And I thought, maybe I'll be an English major, but I don't want to teach. So I'll figure it out. Once I change my major, I'll just figure it out. My mother is a retired educator. And while I love seeing her teach, I think she's one of the best teachers ever. That was not what I wanted to do. I love kids, all of that. At the time, I was a dance instructor. I started taking dancing at 3, and my junior year in high school, I started teaching. So I taught for 7 years, from 2 years old all the way up to adults. But I said, I'll deal with that later. I think this is really what I want to do. So went to my academic advisor, told her I was going to change my major. And then I had to tell my mother that I was going to change my major. And I really thought it was going to be the end of my world. Like, she was just going to really lay into me. And she looked at me and said, Cecka, it does not matter to me or anyone else what your major is. What matters is that you finish school in a major that you like, and then you decide what you want to do with your life after that. She said, I'm a teacher because during the time I went to college, there were only certain things that Black people could do. And teaching was one of them, and I fell in love with it. But that does not mean that has to be your path. I said, okay, cool. So that means I'm going to get a Bachelor of Arts degree. I had already been in school 5 years, and there was no way that I was going to stay and have to do an intern and all this other stuff. I'm like, yeah, now 6 is the magic number. So changed my major to English. And I believe it is still the case today. I'm not really sure. But back then, English majors had to take at least 12 hours of journalism classes. And so Professor Roosevelt Wilson, who has now passed on, and Dr. Abrams were my instructors. So I took my 12 hours of journalism classes, news writing and reporting, media ethics, media law, all of that. And Professor Wilson told me after class one morning, he said, I really want you to consider changing your major to journalism. I said, let me say this to you, Professor Wilson, who's known me, he knew me since I was, 8, 9 years old. I said, I have to get out of school. I cannot be the oldest person marching at graduation. I have to get out of school. So while I appreciate it and I am going to work my hardest to get the best grade I can, I cannot do that. Well, lo and behold, I wanted to work part-time, and the Tallahassee Democrat newspaper had a news assistant's job. That was back when we looked for jobs in the newspaper. Students don't do that anymore. It's all internet-based. And so I applied, and I got the job. And it was because I was an English major and had English classes on my transcript, they gave me that job. And I had taken journalism classes. And so I worked there for a year, fully expecting that they would offer me a job because I enjoyed it. I was writing. They even gave me a few articles that I could write. It was in the features section, which I loved because that wasn't hard-hitting news. It was just about wonderful and glowing things and the things that happen in life that make life worth living. And I thought for sure they would offer me a gig because I knew I was not going to be teaching dancing after that, and they didn't. So I said, well, okay, so what's next? Well, while I was finishing up school, I became the editor of the Rap Sheet, which was the newsletter for for TRIO programs. I'm telling you, in the 6 years that I was at FAMU, there's not much that I didn't touch. So I was a tutor in TRIO, and they had an opening for the rap sheet. This was right around the time that the Apple computer debuted. And so the rap sheet was done using desktop publishing, which no one even uses that word anymore, but it was using desktop publishing on an Apple in a program called PageMaker. So you had Word for Windows, you had PageMaker, and that is how I learned how to do desktop publishing, was in that job. So because I had had that experience, I had had writing experience, I finished school and I told my mom, I said, well, clearly I have to go to graduate school, so I need to figure out what I want to do. She said, no, you have to get a job because your sister's coming behind you and I have to get her through school. I said, well, okay. Well, newspaper's not going to give me a job. I will see, maybe I can get some kind of desktop publishing job. I can do that. So there were several entry-level positions in the newspaper for which I applied. I got a call back from one, and it was for a publications assistant at the Florida League of Cities, which is the state association of the cities in the state of Florida. I went and interviewed, and I got that job. And starting with that job, I moved into a career in public relations, believe it or not, communications, public relations, meeting planning, event planning, exposition halls, all of that was from that one job. And so for 27 years, I went from the publications assistant to the director of publications 6 months later at that same organization, and moved into conference planning. I've been a communications director. And while I was at Florida Housing as a communications director, I got a certification in public management, which teaches transformational leadership, which is learning how to develop leaders as a leader, learning how to develop leaders by figuring out their motivation and their inspiration and helping them realize their dreams, which in turn helps your organization achieve its goals. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to learn how to develop leaders. So my next gig, I want to be in executive management. Had no idea how it was going to happen, but that's what I wanted to do. We got a new executive director. He invited me to leave and I took it, mutual decision, and just started applying for jobs. In the meantime, I worked on Andrew Gillum's campaign. And after that, started looking again and was offered a job as the regional executive director at Children's Home Society, which I did for almost 3 years. During that time, Leon County voted to create a Children's Services Council. I applied for that job. It was a very interesting period because there were 166 applicants. They got it down to 32. Out of the 166, I was number 6, which I thought was pretty good. They got it down and decided they would interview the top 8. I landed at number 2, and number 1 and number 3 dropped out. So after some deliberation, they decided to go ahead and interview me. And there was a lot of chatter. You can go Google it. I'm not going to bore you with the stuff, the things, as one of my team members says. And through God's grace, and I truly believe my destiny, in January, I started as the inaugural executive director of the Children's Services Council here. And unless I get a presidential appointment, and I mean this so seriously, this will be the job from which I retire. Because it is the embodiment of everything that means anything to me. Children's issues, my hometown, transparency, truth, development, it's all of those things. So that's how I ended up in English and am now where I am.
That was a really good story. So here's my question now. You did the Apple publisher, you worked for the newspaper, and then you did the PR, and then you worked on Andrew Gilliam's campaign, and then you went to the children's home and Children's Services Council. That's so many different career paths to have in such a, relatively short span of time. How did you mentioned your English degree for the first position, especially because you have those 12 credit hours that you had to take in journalism. But how did your English major sort of prepare you for all those different twists and turns that you were able to make seeming pretty easily?
Well, I tell you, I am a firm believer in liberal arts education. There was a time when we, as Black children in the 80s, our parents were pushing us into these more, quote, and I'm saying this in quote, more professional majors. So pharmacy, accounting, architecture. The problem with that is once you become a pharmacist or an architect or an accountant, that's all you know how to do. Because your classes were all geared in that direction. When you are a liberal arts major, particularly an English major, the curriculum is so diverse without being too diverse that it actually gives you a window into what might really interest you. People, older people will tell you, see, I'm one of those older people now. I have been working for 31 years. 31 years. They will tell you, if you are able to work in your passion, you never work a day in your life. And that is absolutely true. And so I believe being an English major with theater classes, so now you know how to animate when you need to do that. With public speaking classes, you know how to get in front of people and be persuasive and have a positive debate and relay a message. And Lord have mercy, put together a sentence correctly. So theater, journalism, you understand the tenets of journalism. I don't know if that exists anymore because everybody thinks that they're a journalist now, but you learn how to put together and write a press release such that all of the important things are in that lead, that strong lead, and everything else comes after that. So you learn that. You learn about the literature and the women and the men and the persons of color. And then you learn how language even began, speech and language control. And that professor is now passed on, Margie Rawls. She was my professor. That class taught us the etymology and how words and phrases were developed. It blows people's mind when you can tell them why they're using a particular word or why they're pronouncing it that way. It is just amazing. So my English degree gave me so many options that I did not even realize until once I got out in the world. The obvious option was there because of the journalism piece, but when I think about, oh gosh, I can see his face. The theater is named after him. Y'all help me out. In Tucker Hall. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Ron Davis. What am I thinking? Professor Davis. When I think about taking intro to theater from him and him saying, he says to me, you need to try out for this theatric role. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I did it in high school. It's all good. So the instructors had a way of looking at what you did in class and finding those things in you that made you shine. So that's the second time I've told you a professor saw something and said, you should try this. So that is how I believe my English major, my English degree really helped me. I had a coworker once tell me, I just love reading your emails. And I said, what on earth do you mean? She said, Cecka, from the beginning sentence to the end, It just reads like a story, and it's almost like I can hear you speaking. That makes me very proud, especially in this day and age when people have taken the English language and butchered it and do not understand why it is important for us to be able to communicate clearly. So that is what I think that being an English major, especially having a Bachelor of Arts, so not English education, but a Bachelor of Arts degree, it made me a more diverse person. And so I believe that English is one of the best degrees to prepare you for just about anything that you might want to do. Lawyers will tell you English is a very good major to have before you go to law school, because law school is a lot of writing. And the clearer that you can write, the clearer that you can get your message across. Listen, the way that you can relate what might be going on in the courtroom with some of the classics or some of the writings that have happened. It helps people to be able to visualize what it is that you're trying to say or the message that you are trying to impart to others. So that is why listen, I tried to get my daughter to major in English, and I told her, I said, your two majors should be English or journalism. Now, as a religion major, she seems to be doing okay. I still think she is a gifted writer though. And I'm hoping that she does something with a master's degree in English that way. So that is how I believe that my degree from FAMU in English has helped me and continues to help me every day. And I believe to the core of my soul that until I am, laid down, we have a saying that when I die and they bury me deep, they're going to place a rattler at my feet. But by that time, I will have expended everything that all my English professors poured into me.
Oh, look, I'm sort of speechless here. But because your talk is really touching on so many points that I think some of us as professors try to instill in our students, but I don't think they always believe us, not because they don't believe us generally, but because it's scary when a bunch of people are telling you that your major is a dead end road. You won't be able to do something with it. When the STEM career is so prevalent, not STEAM always, but STEM. I feel so bad for the students because I never had that kind of pressure. Like you, I don't know. So I think that you speaking this way to us tonight, I'm hoping it's really encouraging our students and validating their decision to be an English major or an English minor. I want you guys to be encouraged by the things that Cecka said tonight. And I want to sort of have you be able to close out your words to us all, to the students particularly though. What would you say to them, maybe as kind of your final thought or encouragement that you would want to share with them, excuse me.
So for students who are on the Zoom and you are an English major and you are hearing, oh, you're going to be a teacher? If that's truly what you want to do, then by all means do it. But if it is not, when someone says that to you, you go right back at them and you say, no, I don't want to be a teacher. I can be whatever it is that I want to be. And so as an English major, I'm trying to figure it out. And I have all of the tools to do that. College is not so much. Now, listen, I know this after 6 years in, and I'm now 55. And so I can say this to you. Okay. College is more about figuring out the direction in which you want to start. And I want you to really listen to this. The direction in which you want to start. Because life will say that is not the direction where you will end. because it is only through life experiences that you learn what works for you and what does not work for you. No 22-year-old who goes through school in 4 years is 100% set on what they want to do. Now, you have a few, you might have a few brainiacs that knew at 5 they wanted to be a doctor and they were a doctor and that's what they've always wanted to do. But by and large, the majority of us finish school and have no earthly idea about what we really want to do. Or we have what we want to do and we get into that field or into that job and realize this isn't really what I want to do. So you take your English major and you are armed with a degree that allows you to go in any direction, including medical school, if that's what you want to do. Now, does it mean that it may mean that you have to take a few prerequisites? Yeah, but you can do that. So I think that would be my parting message. Take in everything that your English major has to offer you. Don't get upset because you have to take a theater class or a journalism class. Look at your electives maybe outside of English, because when you put it all together, you end up being this wonderful potpourri of knowledge, of experiences, of the human condition that allows you to do whatever you would like to do. Most of us change careers at least 3 times. And I can say that I did that and landed where I believe I should be. And with every change in career, every opportunity, I learned something new and something different. And I think the last thing I would say is find some sort of work or internship or apprenticeship or something while you're in school using your English major, whether it's writing for a newsletter, maybe it's tutoring, maybe it's working for the state, whatever it might be. Because that also gives you the experience to kind of know where you want to be when you finish school. And I lied. This is the last thing I'm going to say as far as my piece of advice. When you are an English major and you have mastered the English language, you will never be unemployed. Never. Because there are too many people out there who cannot write. And if nothing else, you can work in writing, whether it's helping someone write their dissertation, whether it's technical writing for a technical field, whether it is substitute teaching, whether it is writing press releases, whether it is writing copy at an ad agency. Believe it or not, English majors do that, even though they weren't journalism majors. Whether it's proofreading, books and things that come out. So as an English major, the only way you'll be unemployed is if you choose to be unemployed. You can do anything, absolutely anything that you want to do. And on top of it, you can blow people's mind by using words that they didn't even know existed.
You know, this is our first What Can I Do with an English Major this semester, and it was such a I don't even like to whatever I'm doing here, but this is just so amazing. I'm so excited, and I hope you all are excited too. You know, I didn't talk to Cecka about the questions I was going to ask her until 5 minutes before this panel started, and I'm bringing that up because the passion that she exuded in this conversation is passion of someone who loves her school, but loves her major and really didn't have to cook up anything for you all, for any of us. This is off the top of the dome, which is why she's the executive director of Children's Services Council. But it also it's transparent and it's honest thoughts from her about why this major matters. We all feel that way. I love that she said, if you want to be a teacher, do that. Because those of us who are your professors, we didn't do it for some dead-end job. For us, it feels where we're supposed to be at this moment, our calling at this moment. I love it. And so if you want to do that, don't let anybody tell you shouldn't be doing that. But one of the benefits of this series is that we're working really hard and have been working hard. Dr. Henry has started this, been working to introduce you to people who took other paths with their degree so that you can have validation and you can have assurances from people who went through the same program that you did, that they're okay, that they're happy, that they're fulfilled, that they have a roof over their head. And so that
Listen,
is what this series is about. Yes,
and
ma'am.
Janice, let me be clear. Of course, money is important.
Yes.
It absolutely is. But I promise, if you look for your passion and you look for what you want to do, the money will take care of itself. It will. My first job out of college was $15,000 a year. And now I make over 6 figures. So do not get into this conundrum where you're chasing money. Don't chase the money. Chase what you want to do, and the money will come. That's number one. Number two, do not be fooled. Money is about debt to income ratio. That is what money is about. That's all it's about. So don't get too caught up in how many figures you're making. Make sure you are managing what you make, and you can do anything you want to do. You can travel abroad. You can listen, because I got a designer purse, Jones, bad, but you can get them and not go into debt. You can do all of that. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Janice, but I did want to add that on, because that's the first thing people think about when they say, ooh, what are you going to do with that? That's because everybody's thinking about the money, and we can't all be thinking about the money. So let the money chasers chase the money. If I had stayed in pharmacy, I would have come out of school making $80,000, but I would have been miserable. Nothing about me says pharmacy. Nothing. Orthopedic shoes, compression socks, a white jacket. I mean, look at my hair. I got a earring in my nose, and nothing about me says pharmacy. And had I had like guidance counselors to say, yeah, I know you could do that, Cecka, but you need to be in a field where you are interfacing with people on a daily basis. I would have been an English major. I'm telling you, I would have been an English major and a PR minor with some broadcasting in there somewhere. So don't get caught up in what people say. Like a good friend of mine used to say, when I would say, girl, they're saying such and such, and she'd say, who is they? I'd say them. She'd say, oh, okay, them. So I'm going to go back and do what I did. So it's it's the same thing. But I would not change my path for anything in the world, Dr. Hudson and everybody. I know that it was my destiny. I am friends even now with people who were in my major. Dr. Shanta Hayward, she was an English major, and she has now developed this wonderful way to prepare students to take the ACT and the SAT. Like, her kids are scoring off the charts. Daryl Jones, school board chair, Daryl Jones was an English major. He never taught. He went from English into community development, working at Bethel. Now he is in economic development. He is the deputy director of economic vitality for the city and the county, particularly helping minority-owned and women-owned businesses be stood up, and is the school board chair. So don't get it confused. There are people right here in Leon County doing very well, and never taught, quote, a day in their life. They took that major and they helped raise up the English major. And, one of the things that I do all the time, my kids hate it. They talk and I'm correcting them. They talk and I'm correcting them. And the reason is because there aren't many people in our world right now, particularly people of color, that understand that commanding the English language, understanding about literature, being able to look at those works of art and parallel them to what's going on right now, 1984, Wuthering Heights, how Stella got her groove back, all of those, the whole gambit for colored girls, all of that stuff, nothing new is under the sun. And when you can parallel it to what's going on in life right now, I'm telling you, people don't think you got 169 IQ and all you did was major in English and internalize everything that you learned to go back. I'm telling you, 1984, tell me it's not happening all over again. That's all I'm saying. So Janice, I'm sorry. I just get
You
really
didn't
passionate.
apologize for a thing. Oh no, this feels like church service or something. This is great. All right, now I wanted to say I love the advice you gave to the students that it's really smart to look at some internship opportunities before you graduate, because I think because an English degree can be so powerful, but it's also so broad. You guys, anytime if it feels limiting to you, we've learned from this wonderful guest speaker that it's not that. But if you have some action, there may be some employers who don't know what the people in the room tonight know. And so if you have some internship opportunities where you can, I'll turn the camera. If you have some internship opportunities, departmental, working with cake, something on campus, something internship or apprenticeship related, volunteer related even, that is linked to what you think your career path you'd like it to be after you graduate. When you go and put in those applications, you put that experience down. So if you are concerned, not that you should be, but if you are concerned that a potential employer won't be able to connect the dots the way you are, that helps to solidify that you do have experience, even though you know that your degree prepares you in all these other ways as well. So I think that was great advice. I want to just do some quick thank yous. I do want to do a very brief, I want us to close out at 8, but I do want to give you guys maybe like 10 minutes for questions so that we can close right at 8 on the Q&A. I want to thank all of our majors who are here tonight. I think we have 14 or 15 majors possibly in the room, or minors. So thank you guys so much. Thank you to our Lit Guild president, Zipporah Reeds, and our secretary, Michaela Sherichel. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Oh no, Michaela. I don't know if she's in here tonight. They helped to create our board, one of the boards upstairs for the English department, which features Cecka and 2 other alumni. Let me share. I just gonna share my screen really quickly so you guys can see it. It's not the best picture, but this is the new board that we have outside of the department. Yeah, this picture is not so great, but at the bottom of the board, it has a big picture of Cecka, a big picture of Jesse McCoy, who's an alumnus, a big picture of Alicia Gale, who is a graduate, and it tells they're telling their story too. And I think both of those alums will be speakers on what can I do with an English major at some point. I want to thank you to our faculty who are here tonight. We have Dr. Yan, who's our chair, who I should have introduced at the beginning and I forgot. This is Cecka, this is our chair, Veronica Yan. Dr. Kendra Mitchell, who helped set up this first contact between Cecka and me so that we could get her on here tonight. And Dr. Mitchell is one of our etymology specialists in the department. She has taught classes teaching the students about the history of their vernacular and why it matters and why it's valuable. Dr. Henry, who is away on, well, she's in town, but she's away. She's on a McKnight fellowship this year, and she is still here with us doing tech support, and I'm so thankful for her. I think Dr. Cohen is in here. Professor Lipinski is here. So thank you all for coming. This is great. Did anybody have any questions for Cecka that you guys wanted to throw out before we close? If so, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. Oh, Michaela is here.
I
Go
don't
ahead,
have
though, Rosie. Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I did want to, let me,
What? She had a question, but she wanted to what?
yeah, I just wanted to show myself.
Okay.
I just want to say this was so like, just very eloquently delivered. And, I think you get that message across. Never been more sure of English major than now.
That's wonderful, Dee.
Outstanding. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, but you have to pronounce your name for me.
Oh,
Please.
my name is Sochia Yanellis.
That's beautiful. I was trying to do it. That's not what I can't. That's not what I did. Usually I do pretty good, but I wasn't close. Thank you.
Did-
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Dee. Did anybody else want to share anything or ask any question of Mrs. Green?
I just wanted to say that Ms. Cecka, your story has really honestly been kind of similar to mine because I was a STEM major until relatively recently. I'm actually a student who kind of returned back to campus after taking like extended time off just because I didn't really know where I was going, things like that up until this past semester. And then after switching, everything has been so much, it feels so much more fulfilling now.
I am
So
so
this
glad
whole
to hear that.
this whole entire session felt like just a reaffirmation of everything.
Outstanding. Congratulations. That's
That's
awesome.
Thank you.
wonderful, Michael. Okay, we have a comment on the side from Michaela saying this is very affirming. Thank you so much for speaking. We also have comments from Christiana saying thank you so much. She's seconding Michaela's comment. Did anybody else want to ask any question or say anything to Cecka? Well, maybe she said it all because she said, my God, this was so good. So we are going to get ready to close out. If you came in a little late, just some quick reminders that I gave at the beginning. The All Majors Matter meeting for the whole CESA school is tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. So you'll see the flyer anywhere in the buildings. It was probably emailed to you. So you have the QR code or the Zoom meeting ID. That is tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. You don't want to miss that. The Student Activities Board Organization Day was rescheduled for this Thursday because it was canceled from the 29th because of Hurricane Ian. We had student volunteers for the 29th. We need volunteers for the 13th if we're going to do it. So if you're someone who would volunteer for that, put that in the chat for me, please, and I'll follow up with you. Lit Guild is having a movie night next Wednesday night in the Writing Center, which is 124 Tucker Hall at 7 p.m. We're watching Master, that stars Regina Hall. And hopefully, if we're lucky, we'll be able to pair that with a discussion that is co-led by Drs. Mitchell and Dr. Garnes, because they are part of the freshman-centric program. And the freshmen, even though you guys aren't freshmen, the book is about the history of HBCUs. And Master is about a woman who's at a non-HBCU, at a PWI, and it's haunted, but I think it's symbolic of sort of like the vulnerability of Black bodies in spaces that are supposed to be safe, but end up being hostile in these ways, sometimes microaggressive, sometimes overtly so. So putting that in conversation with that book about the value and protection and safe space, the edification that comes with going to an HBCU